Hey, my name is Melissa J. Scott, and I have recently come back from a 2-month trip that I did all through outback Queensland, starting from Sydney to Brisbane. Then I went across from Brisbane to Birdsville for the Big Red Bash, up through the outback to Mount Isa, then up to Caravan on the Gulf Country, then across the Savannah Way to Port Douglas, Cairns, that area, Mossman Gorge, into the Daintree, and then I met up with some friends and I went in convoy doing all of Cape York and then back down again to Brisbane and Sydney. And it took a total of 2 months. I drove 12,000 kilometres solo and did predominantly most of that all by myself. I'd also like to add that I am just a typical chick. I, at the time, was living in Sydney, been living there for 35 years. I have a great love of camping, and I have 3 young men as sons now. We used to go camping a lot as a family. My husband passed away 7 years ago. He was a pretty prominent figure in the caravan and camping industry back then, and we used to camp together all the time. And then when he passed, I found myself not camping anymore because I just didn't feel like I could do it by myself. And so the purpose of what I'm talking about today is to really help and empower women to feeling like they can totally do it solo, because you can, because if I can, anyone can. So probably the biggest highlight of the trip, which is pretty funny because I did some really great things, but one of the most memorable things that I did, where I really felt truly alone but truly empowered and really happy. I'd been to Birdsville and I'd gone up through Mount Isa and done all that, gone to Karumba, spent a lot of time in Karumba. I absolutely love that. I was there for nearly a week. Then I had to get across. I was going to meet up with some friends at Cape York to do Cape York, but I was going across to the Daintree. So I had to do the Savannah Way across the top of Queensland, and that's about 700 or 800 kilometres by myself. And it's funny that this is probably one of the most memorable experiences, but it was just so empowering. Like, I was doing that trip by myself and I thought, my God, I'm driving across the top of Queensland with a caravan on the back. I'm by myself, and I just was overtaking road trains and just seeing beautiful little country towns and meeting people. And it was just such an empowering moment. But the thing that was the most memorable about it was that I stopped. I got stopped in the middle of the road, probably about 500 kilometres in, and a copper stopped me, and I thought, oh my God, I've been done speeding. But I wasn't. I was actually, he was just giving me a warning that there was 1,000 head of cattle up ahead of Brahman cattle, and that I had to pass through it, and they were being moved from one property to the next, which, as we all know, up there, the properties can be, many, many kilometres long, and they were going to be all out on the road, and I had to sort of like navigate my way through a herd of 1,000 Brahman. And it was just something so beautiful. Like, it was just the smell of the cattle, like kicking up all the gum tree leaves and everything. And I was just in the middle of the road, and they were just all milling around me and passing by, and I had all the windows down, and there were just cattle walking past me. And then there were the stockmen that were with them. And something that I heard a lot on my trip was that I was alone, and people seemed to feel the need to point it out to me, and I was quite aware that I was. Anyway, there was the head stockman came up to me, and he sort of rode up. They were all on horseback, and he peered down into the vehicle because he was much higher than me, and he's gone, "What are you doing out here?" I think he was quite surprised to see someone like me there. And I said, I'm driving across I'm meeting friends. I always said, I'm meeting friends. I'm meeting friends in the Daintree. And he's like, "On your own? By yourself?" I was like, yeah, I'm by myself. And he's like, and he just looked at me and smiled, and he goes, "What's wrong with all these men out there?" And it was just such a lovely exchange. And it was, don't ask me why, but that was probably one of the most memorable experiences. I think I was just so happy and proud of myself and felt so good and elated that it was a real moment for me. Really felt really confident and strong, like I had every right to be there. And he was, we just shared a moment, and then off he went. It was great. And I just thought, yeah, what is wrong with all these blokes out there? But the message behind that for me was that you don't have to not do it. Just because you don't have somebody that's going to do it with you, you can totally do it solo. So what really inspired me to do the trip? Well, it was a spur-of-the-moment decision. I was doing lawn bowling with my sister, and she mentioned that she was going to the Big Red Bash, and I was so annoyed. I was like, far out, I've been wanting to go to that for years. I don't have a partner that wants to go with me. I'm sick and tired of waiting for someone that wants to go with me. None of my friends want to come. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I committed right then and there. It was February 2023. I committed to going to it. I went online that weekend, bought my ticket. So I was committed. I organised with MDC using one of the vans, and I just made it happen. I spent the next 4 months planning it, and when I say planning it, it really wasn't much that I had to do, have all the camping gear that I needed. And when you have a caravan, you don't really need all that much camping gear anyway. It really is just about making that decision and then just sticking to it and doing it. And if it is unfamiliar to you, there's so much information online. So go on YouTube and just do a whole lot of research. There's so many solo women out there doing it. I've got a whole lot of videos too, which you'll find on the MDC YouTube channel, which sort of talks about it. There's packing videos on there. And it's really just once you sort of immerse yourself in the fact that you're going to do it and you do the research through YouTube, I think is the best way to do it, then you just do it. So I didn't really have too many challenges on the road, to be honest. There was a little bit of blind faith there. I kind of foolishly didn't learn how to change a tyre before I left, because I sort of figured that I would be able to just get someone to help me do it if I needed to. And would you believe it, on the very first night that I rolled into camp with convoy with the MDC team, I did have a screw in my tyre, and I got up the next morning, jumped in my car, and the car indicated that my left rear wheel, it was flat. It wasn't so bad, but it was going down. And so I was able to get the guys to help me change it. So I would recommend that you probably do a little bit more basic maintenance than what I had, because that was really the only challenge I had. And then I had another challenge, actually, when we were almost at the tip. Again, I was really lucky. I was in convoy with some friends, and I was 9 k's from the top of Punsan Bay, went through a water crossing, hit the bottom with the bottom of my car, and the bash plate, the nuts had been jostled out and from all of the corrugations of Cape York, and the bash plate came off, and I came out of it and I was dragging it along the ground, and so one of the guys in the group jumped under the car and just removed it. So they were the 2 things that went wrong, and both times they were easily sorted out by people passing by. And I just want to say, you can rely on the help and the generosity of strangers. Like when we were up in Cape York, we actually came across a guy, a local, who had spun out of control on one of the turns, one of the corners that he did, and he had spun around and then ended up jumping the embankment and getting stuck up on this dirt embankment, completely stuck, couldn't open his car doors or anything. And we passed by, and then we flagged down someone to stop, and then within 10 minutes, honestly, we had like one of the guys with his 4-wheel drive just put some rope on it and towed him out, and then put him in the right direction, and then he drove off after saying thank you. So they're the challenges that I saw, and they were easily fixed. So people are there to help you, which is quite incredible. There's a beautiful sense of community and help with people within the camping community, and I really want to say that I felt safe in those moments. And there was another time when I was driving along, and the Anderson plug fell out and had been dragging along on the ground and was shooting up sparks and all sorts of stuff. And because I drive with a radio, a guy behind me just radioed ahead and let me know, and then I pulled over and was able to fix it. So, you know, people are there to help you, and if you just have the general safety precautions, that will happen. So this is a contentious one. Are there any situations where being a woman has worked to my advantage, or positively or negative? Well, I would say definitely in the positive, people are really open to helping you when you're a solo female. Just from the goodness of their heart. This is what I said before. People are really generous in the camping industry, and they sort of see a solo female out on their own, and they know that that's not a typical normal thing. And I particularly never learnt how to reverse a trailer properly. So I have an idea of how to do it, and I can get myself out of trouble if I've got a whole lot of working room, but I'm not a master at it. So I would basically go into a campsite, line myself, put myself in position, and then I would just wait until somebody walked past, which was always about 10 seconds later, and then just ask them nicely to say, hey, do you mind just directing me in? And then they would direct me in, and then I would go in. So I think possibly people are a little bit more receptive to that if you're female, because you're just polite and you ask nicely. So definitely I would say that there were no negative things about, I can't think of anything that was negatively impacting on me, except the only thing would be the fear that other people put into your minds about travelling solo as a female. And when I would let people know that I was solo, they were quite amazed by it and would sometimes say negative things to try thinking about it fearfully, and I wouldn't really have those conversations with people because I didn't need that negative stuff put in my mind. So yeah, I think being a solo female kind of actually works to your advantage as far as asking for help. And when I was in convoy with a lot of groups, people were always trying to help out a bit if they could see that I needed a hand. But basically, if you've got the right rig and the right setup, and I had the top, I was in a MDC XD10E. The top goes up automatically, the awning comes out easily, it all is a small van, it's easy to tow. So I didn't take on something that was too large for me. My vehicle could easily tow it. So as long as you work within your boundaries and your perimeters that you've got around yourself, then it's going to be a positive experience. Safety was a really big thing for me and for a lot of people that travel alone, and this goes for men as well. So the one thing that I really did notice is that it took me a lot longer to set up and pack up than other people. And even if I was we went to the Big Red Bash at Birdsville, so every time I would leave my campsite, I would need to be really careful and put things away in the van and lock it up, and I was always locking the van and unlocking the van and just being mindful, I was in charge of everything. So that was probably one of the only things that was something that I had to be more mindful of than my other female friends who might have been travelling with another female partner or a male partner, and then they didn't have to be so mindful all the time about their own personal security. So things that I do to keep myself safe is that I'll be really honest, I really regulate the amount of alcohol that I drink. I am careful with it. So I always felt really in control. I would have a few social drinks with friends, but I would pull it up and just always be really conscious about where I was, who I was with, what was going on, and I could get back to my campsite quite easily. So just being really quite honest is I think if you're solo, you might really want to look at that kind of thing when you're traveling, is that you might consume less alcohol than you would if you were with a partner and you felt like they had your back. So that's definitely one thing the area that it affects. Other things that I did was I was just very conscious of where I kept my keys and my handbags and things like that at all time. I would sleep with those kind of things with me right close by. So, you hear lots of stories about when you're in probably more remote areas, maybe people break into your campsite and take something. So if you have anything of value, just be sensible. Don't leave it lying around in the open space. Don't leave your keys. This is a classic. We used to do it when we were camping. You leave your keys in the seat holder, the stubby holder in your seat. Don't do that. Have your keys with you when you're sleeping and have them up near you. So just being mindful and having common sense, really, that's what you would do whether you're at home or camping. Other things that I did too, from a safety point of view, when I was on my own travelling, I was very careful not to post in real time with social media. I would put up things after I had been there. So I remember one time when I was in Mount Isa, I'd heard a few things about Mount Isa, so I was very careful. I talked about being in Mount Isa when I was in Carumba. So it was never ever in real time when I posted, and I think that's a really safe way as well. Because here's the one thing, is that you do stand out as a solo female traveller. People noticed when I was filling up with fuel, when I was checking into the caravan parks or campground, setting up by myself, it was obvious, and people would comment all the time, oh my God, you're on your own. So I would say sometimes if I felt a little bit compromised, I would say, oh no, I'm just, particularly at fuel stations, I say this all the time, oh my mates are just down the road, they're just buying lunch, I'm hooking up with them in a minute, we're going out to a campsite together. And then I wouldn't elaborate, not go into any more details, and say it really confidently, so it was kind of like, oh right, okay, yeah, cool, she's with people. So I never ever, I sort of thought I wanted to fly the flag for the whole solo thing. I'm on my own and I'm camping, I'm so empowered, I'm doing this by myself. But sometimes in some situations it just felt safer just to say that I was with people, and then there was no question about it. And I was away for 2 months by myself, camped in a lot of different places. I did, when I was on my own, stay more in caravan parks or a real structured kind of campsite because I felt safer. That is something, and that was a bit of a bummer. Sometimes you want to be in a free camp space with all of the space around you, but from a safety point of view, that's what I recommend that you do. And then if you do run into trouble, like I did when I had the screw in my tyre, there's people around to ask for help. So just having common sense is the biggest and best piece of advice. Other things that I know lady travellers do is that they might have, when they put their clothes up or out, they'll actually put up some men's clothing as well, or some men's boots or something around their campsite. And I think that's actually a really great idea as well. So it looks like you have got a partner somewhere. So that's another tip that I know that people do. I had one moment where I really did have a lot of fear, and I realised that that wasn't even my fear that I had. I had only just left the convoy of people that I'd been with. We did Big Red Bash together in Birdsville, then we went to Baduri, did the pig and camel races, and then we left there, and then I was on the road all by myself for the first time, driving up to Mount Isa and then from there up to the Gulf. And I went into a little place called Dajara, which is like an Aboriginal community, and a lady met me at the fuel stop, and it was the first time I'd been on my own, so I was quite fresh, and she said, "Oh my God, are you travelling on your own? That's amazing." But then she kind of just started spiralling into fear-based questions. She's like, "Aren't you scared by yourself? Aren't you worried something's going to happen? Where are you staying tonight? Don't you think you should be with somebody?" And I was like, oh my God, like, wow, this is all, up until this moment, I started talking to this lady, I was feeling really good about stuff. So once we left town, and as I was leaving town, she called out really loudly at the top of her voice, "You can come and stay with us if you like, because I know that you're on your own." It's like, oh my God, could you just not announce more publicly to everybody, please, that I'm on my own? So I still had another couple of 100 kilometres to drive by myself in the outback. So I did. I really had a real moment. For about 45 minutes I drove like this, hunched over the steering wheel, just sort of like between Dajara and Mount Isa, just thinking, what the hell am I doing? Why am I out here by myself? Who do I think I am? I've got 2 more months of this. How the hell am I going to pull this off? Oh my God, I'm crazy. This is nuts. And I just, thank God, I had a real moment. I was just kind of like, well, you're here. You're out here in the middle of nowhere. You put yourself out here in the middle of nowhere. You got a great car, a great van. You have got common sense. You're fine. I had Starlink. I had the internet. Like, if something goes wrong, you can just set up your Starlink, connect to the right people, and get help. You're never ever far away. Life has proven to me that people want to help you all the time. I just calmed down and I just sort of pulled over and I really thought about it, and I just decided I had 2 choices. I was either going to panic and really hate life for the rest of the trip, and then fly someone in to meet me at Mount Isa and then just drive home with my tail between my legs, and just say it was all too hard by myself. Or I could just get past it and just not worry about stuff that hasn't even happened yet and just see what experiences come for me. Thank God I chose the latter, because I had the most amazing time. Nothing went wrong. Anything that went wrong was completely fixable. And I just realised fear is often what other people project onto us, and if we do the right amount of research, like I said before, with the YouTube videos and talking to people and getting into Facebook groups of other experienced campers, you cannot go wrong. There is something to be said about travelling on your own, which really, really brings a strong sense of empowerment and independence to you, and this goes for whether you're male or female. I felt really confident and empowered in myself. Not because I ever knew what the hell I was doing most of the time, because I didn't, but because I had put so much trust into myself and self-belief, because I knew where I was going. I knew that I was waking up today and I knew what I was doing the next day. I knew where I was headed to. I knew how far it was going to take me, and I had booked my accommodation prior, so I knew where I was going. And I did the right things. I let people know where I was going to, so that if I didn't turn up there and if they hadn't heard from me in a day or 2, that they could at least sort of know where I was. So I had all the steps in place, and that gives you great confidence in your own abilities to then just do it. So I would say that the greatest sense of empowerment that I felt was when I was travelling on those outback roads by myself and doing a really competent job. And I'm a city girl. No one taught me or trained me on how to do this stuff. I just paid attention. I did a lot of research through videos. I had been on other trips with my late husband. He drove all the way, but I paid attention to what he was doing. And then I just put that into place. And like I said, common sense is going to be your greatest friend. And if you don't know, just ask people and ask people for help. And that alone is really empowering too, is that you ask people for help and then you just execute by yourself. So not running away with other people's fear is my greatest piece of advice. And then just backing yourself and trusting in yourself, because then that is, once you get out of your comfort zone is here. And then when you get outside of your comfort zone, it just expands and it expands and it expands. And I just can't wait to do my next solo trip, because I have so much self-belief around how it was the first time I did it. And you just have to try something, do it in small doses, and then just try it and do more and more and more. So maybe for your first trip, go somewhere to a caravan park where it's a really controlled environment. Don't go off-road at all. Be around people that can help you, like maybe be part of a group. There's a lot of groups for women. There's one called Rolling Solo. Join that group. Go on your first camping trip with a whole bunch of women. I know MDC do tag-along trips. Go on one of those trips if you buy an MDC. Like, be in groups where people can help you, and that's really going to give you a whole sense of empowerment too, so you can start to do stuff by yourself. I can only talk from my 2-month experience that I've just come back from, and other times that I've been away, but this was probably the longest time, certainly the longest time on my own, and I would be racking my brain to think of any kind of discrimination. If anything, I think I kind of got special treatment. People were just super nice to me, really helpful. I still had to do everything by myself. I couldn't just turn up to a campground and be a princess. You still have to set up your own stuff. It's your gear. But people can see that you're on your own, and they're full of admiration for you if you're in convoy with people, and they'll help out if you need help. I honestly drove every single kilometre of that trip by myself. It was my van to tow, my car. I reversed in every time by myself. People guided me and helped me. So you have to have a sense that you chose this, so you've got to do it by yourself. But I would definitely say I did not experience an ounce of discrimination or any kind of negative things about being a female. Probably the nicest thing that has happened for me since I got back from my trip is, and I made a whole lot of video and content, like I said before, it's on the MDC YouTube channel. You should check that out. There's something like 22 or 23 episodes of my 12,000 kilometre journey. Is just do it. That's my advice to women. Just get out there and do it. If you have a sense that you love camping, there are people that just don't want to go with you in your life, and that's holding you back, because that's what held me back for 7 years after my husband passed away. And this could be for people that are actually married or are in a partnership, have been married for a long time. Maybe your partner just doesn't want to do it. I say to you, do it anyway. I have got female friends that I've heard of and met while I've been travelling around who've got partners back at home that either just couldn't get the time off or just have no inclination to travel. And that's no reason why you shouldn't do it yourself. My sister has a family. Her grandmother by marriage is a lady that travels around Australia all by herself, and she's in her 80s now. There are so many women that are doing this and completely empowered. I say just do your research. Get the right kind of setup that's going to suit you and your physical capabilities and your confidence capabilities, and join a group if you need to. Do the research and just get out there and do it. And when you're doing it, don't be shy. Post it on your social accounts and let people know that you're doing it. You will inspire so many people. I know that my trip has inspired lots of people, lots of female solo travellers to do it. And I'm so excited about that, because you come back a completely different person. There's a saying I've got, which is how you do one thing is how you do everything. And truly, you are a much different person when you come back, and that influences every aspect of your life. And I made a massive life change when I came back. Went back to living with my sons, my grown-up sons in their 20s in Sydney, just living the same old life. And I was just kind of like, I love Queensland. I think I want to live there. So I do. I made some phone calls and set up some work opportunities for me. I run my own business as well, which I was running while I was on the road. And now I live up here on the Gold Coast and work out of MDC some days a week in Brisbane. I still have my clients up here and living a completely different life. And I don't think I would have done that had I not done my trip. And the sense of empowerment that it gave me, the sense of confidence and the sense of self-belief that you can just do anything that you want to do. So that would be my only warning that would come with this, is if you start doing this kind of stuff for yourself, beware, you might make some big changes in the rest of your life. But I think that can only be a good thing. My advice to you, if you are remotely thinking about doing a solo camping trip, just please do it. Set yourself up with the gear that you can afford and the gear that you can use well. I've got a story. I've got a girlfriend last year, 2022, I was going out to the Mundi Bash by myself because no one was going with me, and I was just taking a tent at that time because that's all I had. And so I went out there, and a girlfriend tagged along with me. We met up out there. She had a borrowed swag. She was in just like a normal old SUV, like I drive a ute. She was just in a normal SUV. She borrowed nearly every scrap of camping gear that she had because she just didn't even know if she liked camping. And while she was out there at the Silverton Hotel, she met the love of her life, which is the most beautiful story. And they are still together to this day. She completely moved homes from Sydney. She now lives down in Echuca with this man that she met, beautiful guy. And it's a total love story. And they have just since bought a really lovely caravan, and now they go caravanning together. She loves camping, but she didn't know if she did or not. She was a city girl. And like, had she not taken that leap and just done it anyway, and borrowed all the gear, like her whole life, she'd still be living the same old life that she wasn't really happy in. And now she's got this incredible life that suits her so much better. And I just think we have to follow our dreams. We have to follow our passion. There's a lot of us that camped when we were kids and we really loved that whole lifestyle, and now we're not doing it because we have a perception that it's hard. And it's only hard if we say that it's hard. There are so many places that you can research about how to camp. There's every weekend somewhere in Australia there's a caravan and camping show on, and every major centre every couple of months there's a caravan and camping show. Go to them, talk to the people that are there selling all the products, do your research. We have this incredible thing called the internet. Get on YouTube, get on Facebook, get on Instagram and follow people. There are so many people out there that are documenting their experiences and doing reviews. Talk to the people that are in the companies that actually are putting out really great content. I know that MDC, we're putting out a podcast at the moment which has got fantastic content. There's lots of videos on there that you can go check out and really see what kind of style of camping suits you best. You can join groups, like I said before. There's Rolling Solo for females. There's a great group in that. With the Big Red Bash, if you're going out there, it's a great music festival in Birdsville, and the one at Mundy in Broken Hill. They have the community pages, the Facebook group pages, where there's so much information. There's so many Facebook groups that have so much personalised information on there for you. MDC and AusRV Owners Group, if you wanted to join that, that's a group that I'm part of, which has incredible information on there. So there's no excuse. You can empower yourself with the information that you need, and you can watch my videos if you want to and check them out, and just live your dream. Really don't miss out on this opportunity to experience life in the way that you want to, because we are so lucky to live in such a beautiful country like Australia with so many amazing safe places that you can camp. If you want to still feel safe, just go to a campground that's, you know, a designated campground. If you want to go completely off grid and bush and into the desert, you know, research on how to do that and then just go do that. And my advice is to take a satellite phone or take Starlink, which is a really great thing. So you've always got some kind of communication with people if you need to, and just do it. That's my recommendation. For International Women's Day, I think we are so fortunate to live in Australia. Take advantage of that and live life to the fullest, and do not let fear or other people's fear projected onto you stop you from living the kind of life that you truly want to live. And be the kind of woman that you want to be, and more importantly, inspire and motivate the kind of women that you want in your circle, and you will be blown away how much your life changes. How did I prioritise self-care while I was travelling? Well, it's funny you ask this, because when I was travelling with Mandy, when we were in convoy, we were very conscious that we were putting on weight, because one thing you do is you sit behind the wheel when you're doing a big trip, like I drove 12,000 kilometres in 2 months, and you eat too much and you can put on weight. So we were really careful to be aware of that, drank lots of water. Like I said, I really minimised. I hardly drank any alcohol on my trip because I needed to be alert while I was driving the next day. So, and I don't really care too much for alcohol anyway. If you are somebody that loves to have a bit of a social drink up, maybe just don't travel the next day. Maybe just wait a day and then travel the day after that. We did a lot of exercises. I carried my free weights with me when I was travelling, and did a little bit of exercise. There's always so many places to walk and run. You know, you might take a stand-up paddleboard with you, or a kayak or something, a bike. There's so many ways. You've just got to be really conscious of that while you're out, and make the time and prioritise the time for your health, and still eat really well. And like the setups that we have now with our kitchens, I ate like a king every day. You can eat so healthy. So there's fresh food everywhere. When you are in the outback, be really conscious about the kind of food that you might have to take in with you, because there's not so much fresh food out there. But apart from that, there's no excuse. Self-care is just how it is at home. Just make it a priority. Probably the greatest advantage that I kind of knew would happen but didn't know so much about taking on this solo adventure that I did was about the self-empowerment that it created. I did go on that trip with a bit of a mission to find myself and understand, to connect back to myself and understand who I was, what I wanted out of life, what was I doing in life anyway, connect back to the earth, but connect back to me and spend that time on my own. Like, it was a pretty big deal. And while I said I was on my own, I never felt, the strange thing was most of the time I didn't really feel like I was on my own. And I went out to dinner pretty much every night. I'd go to, if I wasn't eating in camp, I'd go to a pub, eat by myself, just start talking to people, and then I'd be sitting with a group of people and having a great time. And then I'd go back to camp by myself. I might do some journaling or writing. I was working while I was on the road too, so I still felt quite connected to my life. And really empowered me with really understanding you don't need much in this life, really. Like, back home, I have got a wardrobe the size of Imelda Marcos's shoe collection, and I just don't need all that stuff. So, when I think I mentioned before, when I got back to Sydney, I actually uprooted and left and changed and reinvented my whole life and moved up to Queensland because I wanted to. And so that would be the only warning sign that I would say about the benefits of doing a trip like this, when you become so empowered in yourself and you do find and connect to yourself, that your life might change when you get back home. And you need to be prepared for that, whatever that's going to look like. But life will never be the same again if you go on an extended solo trip like this, I promise you. And that's a good thing. Can I share a moment of connection on my trip? Absolutely. I had so many beautiful moments of connection, but I really want to focus on one person who I met. And it's so interesting. I met this person on the very first night when I pulled into camp. I drove from Brisbane to a place, Bolan. We were on a river there. It was part of the MDC owners group. There was a couple there called Mandy and Rolly Heath. They're from Memories Not Money, a YouTube channel. I didn't know them from a bar of soap. I didn't even realise they were going to be on the trip. I hadn't done that much research. I pulled into camp. Mandy directed me in because she could see that I was an MDC Caravan. I was the first one in from all the convoy leaving from Brisbane. It was on twilight and I'd just driven 500 or 600 kilometres by myself, and I was feeling, quite like, whoa, here I am by myself doing all this. And I connected with Mandy and she was so beautiful, and we got chatting. I told her about my trip and she was so excited to hear about it. I told her I was going to Cape York towards the end of the trip, and she was like, wow, yeah, you can probably do that by yourself, but do you want to go with somebody? And I was like, well, I hope I meet somebody on the way. That's my plan and intention. And she said, well, we're doing that trip. It was kind of like the dates were out by a week. We're doing that trip. Do you want to come with us? And they were doing it with some family members. And stupidly, I said, oh, no, that's okay, because, city girl, didn't want to impose. And then I had that serendipitous moment that night where the tyre went flat and her husband was one of the people that helped fix it. And I just thought to myself, I'm crazy if I don't say yes to these beautiful people who've already offered me. They knew me for a couple of hours and had already offered for me to go and travel Cape York with them. And I just said yes on the spot. And we just have created the most beautiful friendship since then. We went out to Birdsville together, climbed up Big Red together, did yoga up there together, just had so many fantastic moments. And then we did all of Cape York together, and with her and her husband, and her beautiful son was also on the first part of the trip. And yeah, so lifelong friendship there. And I met so many other people through the MDC and OzRV owners group as well, who were just amazing, and I'll be in contact with for life. But my heart really goes out particularly to Mandy and the beautiful friendship that we created. And I think when you do a trip like that, you have such an intense amount of time that you spend with each other. And camping, the same campground, it's almost like living with someone for, a 1 or 2 or 3 week period. You get to really know them, and I just know we'll be friends for life. We're going to do another trip again this year together in the same group. It's lifelong friendships. And I think that was cemented even more because I was solo. Back when I used to travel with my husband, I probably wasn't as sociable as I am now. And being solo really gave me the advantage of really being present with the people that I was with and not worrying about what was happening back at the campsite. Oh my God, have I fed all the kids? What's my husband doing? Is he okay? Or what's my partner doing? And I was just really in the moment about what I needed and what I wanted. And so you make incredible friends, particularly when you're solo, because you're actually looking for those external friendships. And it's one of the greatest advantages of traveling solo. I'm a fan of personal growth anyway, personal development, but travelling solo was one of the most empowering, symbolic, amazing experiences of my life. Really brought me back to me, really made me centred, really showed me that I could rely on me. which I've had experiences in life. We all have. We get to middle age and we've had a lot of experiences in life which sort of like show you what you're made of. But doing this solo trip really celebrated who I was and what I'm made of, and it really helped me center and ground on what I want in life for the rest of my life and moving forward, and the adventures that I want. You know, I really recognize that I'm a person full of adventure and really want to be that person and live my life without fear and with freedom and flexibility and still stability and security, because that's who I am as a person. That's what I want. I'm not a total gypsy, but I do want to create amazing moments and memories in my life on a very regular basis and feel like that I'm still living, and that life is for living, and that it's not just about paying off massive mortgages and having so much money in the bank and then waiting for that magical day when you finally get to go see Australia. Or see the rest of the world for that matter. But you actually spend that time for yourself now in the present moment. So yeah, my personal growth and development has been huge, and I think most people have seen a massive change in me. It's kind of like I've been on a very long personal development journey since Steve died 7 years ago. It's nearly coming up to the 7th anniversary, and I had a lot of moments on that trip too where I really connected with my late husband, because we were campers together, and it was quite a spiritual kind of trip as well for me, which I know some people kind of think, oh my God, but there were so many moments in that trip where it was pretty evident that we are not alone in this world and in this life, and that the spirit life comes with us as well. And there were a lot of serendipitous moments and I believe that I was really set up in that friendship with Mandy and Rolly to help me for the rest of my trip and throughout life, actually. You know, I think it was an orchestrated thing, and that might be a bit woo-woo for people, but this is what happens when you start traveling solo, is that you actually get an opportunity to really connect pretty deep with what's going on around you and not be just caught up with what's happening in this space. So yeah, the answer to that question is I had a lot of incredible personal growth, spiritual growth, deep connection to myself, confidence, self-belief, and that beautiful feeling that we're not alone was a gift, a real gift. Because the reason why is because if you're physically alone and that fills you with fear, that stops you from actually doing things that might actually help you more in life. And when you actually come to realize that we're never alone and that we're always loved and cared for and that the universe has our back, makes you a lot braver, and it makes you take chances and look for opportunities that were never there before and leap into really great things for your life. So this is what solo traveling has done for me. I was always kind of like swayed that way anyway, but much more so. So I've totally uprooted my life since I came back from my trip, and I feel great about it. I feel fantastic, and I have far less things and far less clutter around me, and I just really understand what's important to me now in life, and that's people, relationships, experiences, memory, and myself. Really looking after myself and self-care and self-nurturing. So these are the things that could happen for you too if you take up solo traveling. So it all comes with a big warning sign. But I think if you're looking for anything in your life to have a much deeper meaning for you and to be more fulfilling, I highly recommend looking at a camping lifestyle and what it brings for you. Is really bringing life back to basics and really connecting with yourself, the environment, the planet, and people, animals, and all the things that actually really matter, not stuff. So I hope this has been a really great watch for you guys. It is for International Women's Day, but honestly, my message could go for any man as well.